but you can't kill me, Lord Tyrant. I represent that thing you've never been able to kill, no matter how hard you try. I am Cosmere Chronicles, the podcast where we follow two first-time readers, Sheta and Justin, when we chronicle their journey through Brand Sanderson's Cosmere series. On today's episode, we'll be finishing up Mistborn, the Hero of Ages, by reading chapters 75 through the end. So now it's time to throw it over to the host of Cosmere Chronicles. This is Joe. Thank you, Joe. Yep, we are here for the end of Mistborn, the Hero of Ages, and the Mistborn trilogy here on Cosmere Chronicles. I am Joe, as you heard, and I am joined again by Sheta and Justin.
Isabeloo.
Joe, how come you don't ask how we're doing anymore?
She asked that after.
All right, fine. How are you doing today?
Well,
Doing all right.
as hell.
Yep, as you heard, we're here. We're feeling different ways about different things. And, so let's just go into me asking you random questions and stuff. Oh, man, it's getting hard to figure out some of these. So anybody listening, if you have questions of random shit you want to ask us, just feel free to send an email or leave a comment or whatnot, and I can ask that.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, I'll ask Justin and Sheta,
What is your favorite color?
No, we're not doing that bit.
I have my book again, Joe, if you want me to look at that.
No, that was a disaster.
Well, you got a question off of the question that I had to ask. Or that I asked.
No, we didn't. I just made something else up when we had to.
Because you were inspired by the question that I had asked from the book.
Inspired is a bit of a strong word, Sheta.
Alright, here we go. Let's just go back to movies that most of us have seen, and I will ask you, what is your favorite Quentin Tarantino film?
Kill Bill, I think, for me. I enjoy all the action and the characters and the knowing campiness of it quite a bit.
Interesting.
Man, whenever you say Kill Bill, it still bothers me to this day that he has not released The Whole Bloody Affair.
Yeah, it sucks.
The fact that he has shown it at like a couple festivals, but has never actually released that movie. It's like, come on, man. When you release Hateful Eight extended version in 4 parts on Netflix, but you can't release the long version of Whole Bloody Affair.
I have not watched that extended Hateful Eight yet.
I'm gonna have to go with Inglourious Basterds.
Alright.
Anything more than that, Sheta?
I just think it's I just like it being like a timepiece. I just enjoy timepieces a lot, and I love all the actors in there, the characters, and the story. Though it would have been great to have Adam Sandler play the Bear Jew.
That would have been epic.
That would have been the cherry on top.
Because wasn't it Eli Roth?
Yeah, he's great too.
And he was good too, yeah.
But Adam Sandler.
It was cool. I liked him trying to use these more comedy actors in these dramatic roles, like Mike Myers playing.
Mike Myers is great. Yeah.
I forget who he was playing, but some world
just playing
figure.
the guy. Yeah, just the guy that gave them the mission.
Yeah, that was great.
All right, for me, I'll probably be in the same camp as Justin with Kill Bill. In fact, I think that was even the first Quentin Tarantino film that I ever saw. And one thing is, I'm always a sucker for, whether it be TV shows that do it, movies, books. I love it when something is like a 2-parter, where it's like, you watch it, ends on a cliffhanger with a to be continued, and then I come back later to see it. So even though Kill Bill would be great as one long movie, when I first saw it, just having a DVD, watching part 1, and then watching part 2 later, I totally bought into that.
Yeah,
it was really
cool.
Exciting. That was back in when, like, a 2-parter, like, the way he did it was very artistic and purposeful, not like, this movie was just too long, so, or like, we split this book into 2 parts. Like,
I think it might have just been too long, though, so I think you did a really good job.
He did an end cap, though, that made it feel purposeful.
Yeah, I
agree. Think that was a Harvey Weinstein thing. It was meant to be one movie. And then he's like, no, we need it's too long. Let's make it 2 parts. Then we can release it and make double the money. So then he split it. And I know he added in some extra scenes at the end of the first movie in order to make it better as a 2-parter. Because I guess, like, I don't really want to spoil it if nobody's ever seen it. But, like, the final scenes at the end with, talking, that stuff was, like, cut out. So if you watch the whole bloody fair, it doesn't have that.
Interesting.
Who's another big, well-known actor or director we could go with for another?
I'm gonna make you figure it out.
I have good ones, but go ahead.
Let's stay with the Quentin Tarantino stuff, and I'll ask you, what is your favorite Robert Rodriguez film?
Robert Rodriguez film.
Well, it's got to be Spy Kids.
I'm not gonna go with Spy Kids. I'm gonna have to go with Planet Terror. No, wait, it's tough. Yeah. I think, no, Sin City. I have to go Sin City.
And you're definitely going with A Dame to Kill For, right?
No, I'm not. I did not like that movie at all.
I still have not watched it.
It's not worth watching.
Is that even for beloved Eva Green, Justin?
No, it's not a good movie. It's stupid.
Is that all the original stuff? Is even the one that based off of A Dame to Kill For? Is at least
the one Sheta was referencing, that one's fine. It just follows the story and all.
Because is that the only canon or stuff from the comics in there? Is just that story?
And then they do a short at the beginning that was, if I recall, from something. It's been a bit, though, since I watched it.
Everything else is just made up.
2 stories that are just made up, both of which fucking suck, because both of those stories make Hardigan's sacrifice look like it was a stupid waste of time. It's so stupid.
All right, Sheta, your Robert Rodriguez film?
I said Spy Kids.
Okay. I thought you were
grew up
giving
with
a
Spy Kids.
suggestion.
It's our official answer.
Yeah. I loved the Spy Kids movies. Just the first one. The second one too is okay too.
You could go with the Robert Rodriguez movie that none of us will ever get to see.
The one that's released in like 1,000 years or something.
100 years. It's a short film called 100. Stars John Malkovich, and it's like a promotional thing with this whiskey brand where they let their stuff age for 100 years. So he filmed the movie. It goes in this vault that's time locked for 100 years, and like a bunch of people are given like these commemorative like metal tickets that then they can hand off to their descendants. So that way in 100 years, these people have these tickets to go see this movie that's 100 years old.
That's so morbid to me. It's sad. It's like, here you go, Billy. I'll never live to see this, but he's like, I don't know what this fucking is. It's like, just go see it because I'll be dead. Like, that is just so.
But think about it. If it was like coming up and you're one of the people that have it, you'd be hyped, being like, oh yeah, been waiting for this movie for 100 years. It won't live up to the hype.
No, it won't.
I saw that horrible fucking scooter race in Book of Boba Fett. Something happened to Robert Rodriguez recently that messed him up. I don't know what it...
Wait, he had something to do with Book of Boba Fett?
Yeah, he was involved in that show. He directed a bunch of episodes, and normally his directing is pretty good, but in those, there's some of the least exciting, stupidest things I've ever seen.
One thing that I did hear, which kind of made me want to watch, at least the beginning of the first episode of that, is apparently the first episode, like the beginning of it, is like shot for shot, angle for angle, the exact thing that Patton Oswalt was saying in like Parks and Rec when he was giving his Star Wars rant about a Boba Fett show.
What? Why?
They did it as an homage to that Parks and Rec thing. I could be wrong. I'd
believe it because that show's stupid.
Boba Fett, not Parks and Rec.
Yeah, no, I mean yeah. Oh my god, fucking right. I know the scene you're talking about. Yeah. No, it's the directing of that scooter chase. That's my problem. No, you're right. That is, it does almost line up exactly with that incredibly lame description he gives in Parks and Rec. Oh man, that's so lame.
I want to watch that again.
Oh my god, it's just exactly what you'd expect.
What scene was it?
It's just him crawling out of the Sarlacc pit, basically.
Oh, it was the opening?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, never mind. I know.
And it's just this really corny parody of what like a really dorky Star Wars person would say they should do for the opening.
Why do that? This is a
And
huge character.
From what I'm looking at, it doesn't look like it was on purpose. It looks like they were just that uncreative.
Oh my goodness. No, I would not hinge an entire franchisable character on a dumb thing that was said off the cuff. Like, I don't know why you would do that. Well, I mean, yeah, Boba Fett should have been handled with care if they're gonna do it at all.
Yeah, I think most people would agree with you, Sheta.
Like, I wouldn't have done it, but if you were, you would be like handling a freaking bomb that was gonna explode. You shouldn't have done that.
Sheta, did you see how they handled Luke, Han, and Leia, who are much more beloved than Boba Fett?
I know. But I don't even want to get into that. I erase those memories out of my head every time they're done being talked about, actually.
You just need to see any of the things of Mark Hamill talking about The Last Jedi.
Nope.
He is not a fan of how Luke was handled in that movie.
Yeah. Luke is the... No, let's not do that.
Right. But, yeah, I will, my Robert Rodriguez movie, I'll be with Justin. I'll go with Sin City. Granted, I have not watched Desperado or Once Upon a Time in Mexico yet. I really should get around to watching those two. So I
have the Spy Kids movies, Joe, if you want to borrow those.
Those were not what I was talking about. I was talking about a different trilogy. The El Mariachi trilogy, where I like the first one. So let's go back to Mistborn. All right. And first we will have a recap of last week's chapters with Sheta going over them this time. No reversal this time.
Okay. Last week was 66 through 75. We start with Sazed riding Tensoon into the Kandra homeland, which is also actually ends up being where the pits of Hassan and the training caves were. Tensoon is a horse in this scene. So yeah, Sazed gets dropped off there while Tensoon runs to go find Vin again. And then Sazed meets the Kandra and appeals to the first generation. Then Marsh intercepts Goradel when he's bringing the letter from Spook to Vin, and he kills Goradel and reads while Elend and Yeoman are hanging out in Fadric City, and they figure out why the Mist have been taking down people. They've been snapping them into they've been snapping people. And we learn the significance of the number 16. Sazed and the Kandra compare notes, and then Sazed finds out where the ATM. Sazed finds out where the ATM has been all this time. It's been just in a pool in the Kandra homeland. Then Ven is orchestrating her plan to get the Mist to help her with her theory that she has to be like close to dying for it to help her. That's the same as Justin's theory. You fight like a ton of Inquisitors, including Marsh, to try to get to that level of dying, but the Mist don't help her. But then Marsh, as he's torturing her, breaks through enough to stop and pull out her earring, and then the Mist overtake Vin, and she's basically dead. Then Elend and the Elements army is fighting all the koloss that have been attacking, but as Vin takes in the Mist, like all of them also disappear or stop fighting, or one of those kind of scenes. All right, and then let's Sazed back with Sazed and them at the Kandra homeland. The fifth generation people, the second generation people do a coup because they don't want to do the sacrifice of killing themselves with all the other Kandra. Didn't miss any other big points.
I think the only other thing was that Elend learns that there can be ATM missings, then he left for Luthadel.
Oh, okay, yep.
Besides that, it was good. Point of inspiration.
Okay.
All right. So for this week, we went and we finished the book. We read chapter 76 until the end. So we finished the Mistborn trilogy. So I'll ask you to how would you like these chapters?
Like is a hard way to describe these chapters.
Yeah, I feel like that too. Like It's I don't know. Okay, am I on my own, or do you feel like that? What you're saying with how
I think
it's
that it's
almost
a good ending, but I don't like what happened. That's how I would say it.
oh
What are you
okay, okay,
saying,
okay.
Shita?
I'm saying this is the thing. Like I usually don't theorize about what's happening and talk about it enough. So like I don't know if I like talking about it so much and then having it happen and comparing it to what I thought was gonna happen. You know what I mean? Like I don't like doing
Uh,
it.
I don't know. I naturally do that while reading usually.
I do it a little bit, but not to this extent where I'm like like
You one of those people who get worked up over this theory you made up that's based on nothing, and then when it doesn't happen, you get all annoyed? Is that it?
not annoyed, but I have all these other expectations outside of the
Uh,
book and that I think will be touched upon or something, and then it doesn't, of course, because um, I'm just going crazy over these little details, you know, like
yeah.
so. I am, I am a little bit. No, I won't say. Never mind.
Yeah, but now I will say the ending of this book, it is a little bit of bittersweet. It's a good ending. I feel it's finished, ties up the story, everything was built up, but it's also a little sad.
Yeah, as writing wise, I have no complaints. I think it's done very well, but it's not what I want to have happen. It's one of those things, which is fine.
And
It,
with what she with what Cheetah was saying, I understand how, because I've heard it on, you know, because I listen to all sorts of first time read podcasts for all sorts of different series, Cosmere, One Piece, Song by Sunfire, all sorts of that. One thing I always know is since you go so slow and you talk about it, like Justin was saying, I've heard plenty of times when people they make up their own theories, their own ideas, and they're like, "All right, this will happen," but then they build on it for so long that when it doesn't happen, they're like, they get feel a little underwhelmed because their idea didn't happen. So I know it's something that can happen, and it's just a line that we need to,
The only way I
you
feel
know,
that way is when my theory is better and makes more sense to the story, which I didn't have one of those for this. But some things I've read where I'm like it just seemed obvious that's what they were building towards, and turned out they weren't. That was really annoying.
yeah.
But
Well,
then you
that's
just steal
yeah,
it and go write your own story instead.
yeah, because I feel like I'm pulling at a thread, and I expect
Hmm.
this
And then they
to
just take
go
a weird
there.
ass left turn instead.
Yeah, and I'm like, yeah.
Not in this one, no. This one, everything was built upon what came before.
For me, it was like that, but also not quite like what I thought. So I have this unhappy feeling.
it may be something too with over time as you think about it more, you may digest it a little bit better because I know the first time I read it when it ended, I was just kind of like saddened, a little upset, but over time when I thought later would think back about it and when I reread it here, it's like, all right, never mind. This is I liked it a lot more.
Mm-hmm. You can see that.
All right, well, let's stop with the vague talking about it and let's go into the chapters. So starting off, chapter 76. I've always wondered about the strange ability allomancers have to pierce the mists. When one burned tin, he or she could see farther at night, looking through the mists. To the layman, this might seem like a logical connection. Tin, after all, enhances the senses. The logical mind, however, may find a puzzle in this ability. How exactly would tin let one see through the mist? As an obstruction, they are unconnected with the quality of one's eyesight. Both the nearsighted scholar and the long-sighted scout would have the same trouble seeing into the distance if there was a wall in the way. This, then, should have been our first clue. Allomancers could see through the mist because the mists were, indeed, composed of the very same power as allomancy. Once attuned by burning tin, the allomancer was almost part of the mist, and therefore they became more translucent to him. Alright. Chapter begins, and Vin is floating. She no longer has a body, and she's kind of pretty much looking down on the city of Luthadel. And she's looking around, she can pretty much see the entire landscape around her. And she also feels great power inside of her. And then Vin sees a black cloud that looks both close and distant. It is Ruin, and he welcomes her to godhood.
I was surprised with how casual he was about that. I thought he'd be more upset.
So Vin looks at the planet, and she can tell that it does not have much time left. She sees that most people have gone to the storage caverns and realizes that those were created to be shelters. And then she plugs up the ash mounds and removes the ash from the sky. But then the planet begins to burn because of the sun. So Vin spins the planet in order to put the sun on the other side, and the land doesn't burn. But this sudden spin causes a tsunami, which then starts heading towards a coast where people are still living outside. Vin tries to stop the tsunami, but Ruin prevents her from doing so. And the wave hits the coast and kills a lot of people.
If only she had some knowledge that that's what would happen when you do that. I don't blame her. I'm sure having all that knowledge makes you act very quickly and rashly, or that power, but still, it's so annoying to have been told so many times, us, the reader, that that's exactly what Rashik did, and then watch her do the exact thing.
It was a different time, Justin. There was no internet.
No, but she'd heard that story.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't think she did.
She didn't? Who knew that?
Hearing about him moving the planet and stuff, all that came in this book's epigraph.
Did it truly? That wasn't in the previous one? I thought it was.
No.
Yeah,
No,
I guess that wouldn't make sense for it to be.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Then I'm just stupid. Then it's just frustrating for me to watch that happen.
All right. Ruin tells Vin that she needs precision to use her power correctly. And Vin can see the history of her power, and how Rashik had tried to save the planet by moving it, but wound up fucking it up. Ruin also tells her that she won't be able to do anything, because when she pushes, then he pushes, and vice versa. Vin thinks about this and realizes that she could have saved those people on the coast if Ruin hadn't actively prevented her. He is trying to prevent Vin from realizing how to properly use her power. And Vin sees some bright spots on the planet and realizes that this is metal. It is like glowing lanterns to them. Ruin says that Preservation gave up some of himself to create humans, and because of this, Ruin is now stronger than Vin. But Vin thinks that he is lying because when he stopped her, they were equally mad. But Ruin believes himself to be telling the truth. So Vin realizes that they are equally matched right now, but that's because Ruin is still missing a part of himself, the ATM. Vin can see how Ruin had manipulated Rashik in creating hemalurgic creatures that Ruin could eventually use. And then Ruin begins talking about how Vin killed all the Inquisitors except for one. But Vin just stops listening to him, and she notices Elend heading towards Luthadel. And that's the chapter.
It's hard for me to keep track of where the chapter stopped and started in these last few ones. Everything's moving so fast.
This is like a classic Brandon Sanderson thing.
Yep,
which is
a
like
classic thing.
Yeah, from the
As we well know.
The 2 times that I've experienced it.
Yeah.
Anything else in this chapter you two want to go over? Alright. So on to chapter 77. Looking back, we should have been able to see the connection between the mists, allomancy, and the power at the Well of Ascension. Not only could Allomancer's vision pierce the mists, but there was the fact that the mists swirled slightly around the body of a person using any kind of allomancy. More telling, perhaps, was the fact that when a hemalurgist used his abilities, it drove the mists away. The closer one came to Ruin, the more under his influence, and the longer one bore his spikes, the more the mists were propelled. So this chapter begins with Elend, and he arrives in Luthadel, and he is shocked at the destruction of Creedic Shaw and the city in general. And he walks around the city, looking at it, and he looks at Keep Venture and how it is just worn down now. He thinks about how the ash had stopped falling, and about how it got very hot for a moment before the sun suddenly just plummeted down. And it is now nighttime, even though it should be the afternoon.
I really wanted to see that from their perspective, so I get to hear a bit. It's interesting that she's moving the planet around doing all this crazy shit. But from their perspective, it's not like if you just spun a globe quickly, which was my worry.
Yeah.
See, Vin needs to take the Superman approach and just start spinning the planet backwards in order to
that'd fix it. That'd fix it.
And then Elend finds Penrod's body, and it appears that he had committed suicide. There is a note written by the body saying that his body and the city have been taken over. He only has brief moments of lucidity, so he finds it better to die than to continue to destroy the city, and that the people have fled to the Terrace dominance.
For 1 second, I was like, oh, good, Penrod, he was able to resist and was able to heroically, and then I'm like, wait a minute, I forgot about the writing thing, which they realize in a second, which made Penrod's death even sadder, seeming if this is all a setup to try and trick him.
Well, I think most of the writing is correct.
That's what they assume, but we can't know for sure. And Ruin could have allowed him to have a moment of lucidity to write that, to change it, we don't know. Because we never got to see Penrod in this state, which I think is really funny. We just leave him, then we come back, he's just dead and everything's fucked up.
Yeah, that's sad.
Elend finds it odd that the people would go all the way up to the Terrace Dominance. And he hears a voice on the wind saying, Ruin, lies. And then Elend figures out that Ruin must have altered the message. And then he hears another voice saying, North, pits. Elend knows that Ruin only alters messages slightly, so that means that the people have probably gone to the Terrace people at the Pits of Hathsin, and not the Terrace Dominance. Jump back to Vin, and Vin understands Ruin's frustration. She tried so hard to talk to Elend, but only got a little out, and doesn't even know if he had managed to hear it. However, she does feel a connection to him. And Ruin tells Vin that preservation trapped him, but only for some time. And time means nothing to the gods. And that's the end of that chapter.
I'm going to have to say, Ruin seems like a pretty shitty roommate. I don't think I'd want to live with him up there.
No, he sucks.
Yeah, why do you think preservation gave up his mind? He would rather have no mind than deal with Ruin.
Yeah, I guess so.
Alright. Anything else?
No.
Mm.
We'll go on to chapter 78. And this one has a long epigraph. It may seem odd to those reading this that Atium was part of the body of a god. However, it is necessary to understand that when we said body, we generally meant power. As my mind has expanded, I've come to realize that objects and energy are actually composed of the very same things, and can change state from one to another. It makes perfect sense to me that the power of godhood would manifest within the world in physical form. Ruin and preservation were not nebulous abstractions. They were integral parts of existence. In a way, every object that existed in the world was composed of their power. Atium, then, was an object that was one-sided. Instead of being composed of half ruin, half preservation, as, say, a rock would be, Atium was completely of ruin. The Pits of Hathsin were crafted by preservation as a place to hide the chunk of Ruin's body that he had stolen away during the betrayal and imprisonment. Kelsier didn't truly destroy this place by shattering those crystals, for they would have regrown eventually in a few hundred years, and continued to deposit Atium as the place was a natural outlet for Ruin's trapped power. When people burned Atium, then they were drawing upon the power of Ruin, which is, perhaps, why Atium turned people into such efficient killing machines. They didn't use up this power, however, but simply made use of it. Once a nugget of Atium was expended, the power would return to the pits and begin to coalesce again, just as the power at the Well of Ascension would return there again after it had been used. Interesting.
This is like a science class, but with Atium and metals instead of like minerals in the cycle of water. Like.
That's one of my favorite things in fictional worlds, when you just start making shit up and then you can teach people about it. And when people would not be interested in learning real life stuff, they are very interested in learning this fake stuff.
Yeah.
No, I think the funniest thing is when people, with Brandon's work, start trying to combine the different magic systems and they ask him and stuff how it would work. Because so many times, like, so many of the questions he gets asked, it's like, all right, Brandon, now if an Elantrian went to Scadrial and they used, like, their aeons with, like the metals, what would happen, or stuff like that. Like, just what happens if we like throw these three metals together? Like, and since he understands how all the stuff works, he always gives answers like, yeah, you know what, that would, something interesting would happen, and then he'd say what could or could not happen, or if it would work. It's all the stuff where, like you're saying, people are getting so invested in the magic and the science of it. All right, so we're with Sazed. And Sazed is in one of the pit cages and doesn't know how long he has been in it. And he knows he needs to get out because he no longer believes that the world would end, and he needs to document what is happening. And while he's been in the cave, they have like still tried to give him water to sustain him and just poured it on him and stuff like that. All right. And since he's sitting in there, he is just spending his time storing his weight and speed by touching the iron grate and the steel lock in there. And he just goes into a trance for a long time while storing it. After a while, Tensoon arrives along with Milan, and they release Sazed. He gets out and he sees a bunch of other Kandra along with them. And they tell Sazed that the seconds have been telling people that the first had ordered Sazed arrested. But Sazed corrects them and tells them about the coup that the second generation committed. And then some fifth generation show up and Tensoon attacks them, but it doesn't seem to do much since they can all just keep healing. But Sazed, noticing that they're healing themselves, he comes up with a plan. When one of the fifth generations come to attack him, Sazed uses the iron grate that he is standing on, which is also the one he had stored his weight on to, and he becomes incredibly heavy and he falls onto the Kandra, breaking its bones. And then he touches the lock that he stored up his speed, and he speeds up in order to grab a hammer from the Kandra, and he uses that hammer to take down the other Kandra. And Sazed finds all the first generation lumped together without bones in one of the cells. And Tensoon's orders for the other Kandra with him to get bones. And then Tensoon goes to one of the Kandra that they had defeated, for Kood, and demands that he releases his bones or else Tensoon will digest him like he did Orseer. So Kood does what he asks. And Tensoon tells Sazed that he will disguise himself as Kood and tell the second generation that Tensoon was captured. The first generation will need hours to regenerate their bodies, so Sazed will need to watch them. While he waits, Sazed stores his weight and speed in a lock and a hammer, and he will use this time to question the first generation more. The seconds will only be in power for a few more hours, so what harm could they possibly do?
Why would you say that, Sazed? That drove me nuts. You never say that.
Yeah.
Right here is where we find out exactly how Tensoon killed Orseer. He ate him and digested him.
Ew, no.
Because we knew acid could kill them, but he did not bring a big vat of acid into the castle. Instead, he just ate Orseer. Anything else from this chapter you two want to go over?
No, I'm good.
Okay, let's go on to chapter 79 with another longer epigraph. Oh man, these got long at the end.
Gonna put all the expositions.
I believe that the Mists were searching for someone to become a new host for them. The power needed a consciousness to direct it. In this matter, I am still rather confused. Why would power used to create and destroy need a mind to oversee it? And yet, it seems to have only a vague will of its own, tied into the mandate of its abilities. Without a consciousness to direct it, nothing could actually be destroyed or created. It's as if the power of preservation understands that its tendency to reinforce stability is not enough. If nothing changed, nothing would ever come to exist. That makes me wonder who or what the minds of preservation and ruin were. Regardless, the Mists, the power of preservation, chose someone to become their host long before all of this had happened. That someone, however, was immediately seized by Ruin and used as a pawn. He must have known that by giving her a disguised hemalurgic spike, he would keep the Mists from investing themselves in her as they wished. The 3 times she drew upon their power, then, were the 3 times when her earring had been removed from her body. When she fought the Lord Ruler, his allomancy had ripped it free. When fighting Marsh and Fadrix, she had used the earring as a weapon. And, at the end, Marsh ripped it out, freeing her and allowing the Mists, which were now desperate for a host since Preservation's last wisp was gone, to finally pour themselves into her.
It's really interesting to just start giving that stuff away here towards the end. Just explicitly doing the earrings, all that stuff.
Yeah, the cat's out of the bag now, so.
Pretty dang close.
Alright, so this chapter, alright, we begin with Vin. And Vin feels that something has changed. And Ruin leaves, and Vin follows him to the pits of Hathsin. And then she watches as Kompar and another Kandra talk. Kompar gives the Kandra a bag of atium and says to trade to the humans. And that the Kandra are currently standing on a large amount of treasure. And then Ruin takes control of Kompar since he has the spikes and asks him how much atium they have. So yeah, I just love how it goes from Sazed. How much harm could they do? The beginning of the next chapter. Oh, immediately reveals where the atium is.
That's what I'm saying. That's why you never say that.
And then we go to Elend, and he arrives at the pits of Hathsin and sees some of his soldiers are there. And they are the soldiers that he had sent away with Damu.
Woo,
And he asked them to bring him to the leaders. And then we jump back in over to, we're with Sazed here. It's been a little bit, and the first generation had come out and told the other Kandra about the second generation's coup. And while they're standing around, Tensoon, still in the body he had taken, says that strange things are afoot. and then he suddenly attacks Sazed and begins to strangle him. Tensoon apologizes and says that someone else is controlling him, and that it has taken everything in his power to not kill Sazed.
I use that excuse quite often. Sorry.
Haddock, the leader of the first generation, says that the time has come and announces loudly to the Kandra that the time for their resolution has arrived. And Tensoon moves one of his hands away from Sazed's neck and towards his own shoulder. And then Sazed blacks out. And that's the end of that chapter.
I was hoping the Kandra could find a way out of this.
Me too.
Anything else in this chapter you two want to go over?
No, moving real fast.
Yeah. We're running to the end.
Yeah, a lot of short chapters at the beginning. All right. So we'll go on to chapter 80. The Kandra people always said they were of preservation, while the Koloss Inquisitors were of ruin. Yet, the Kandra bore hemalurgic spikes, just like the others. Was their claim, then, simple delusion? No, I think not. They were created by the Lord Ruler to be spies. When they said such things, most of us interpreted that as meaning he planned to use them as spies in his new government because of their ability to imitate other people. Indeed, they were used for this purpose. But I see something much more grand in their existence. They are the Lord Ruler's double agents, planted with hemalurgic spikes, yet trusted, taught, bound, to pull them free when Ruin tried to seize them. In Ruin's moment of triumph, when he'd always assumed the Conjurer would be his on a whim, the vast majority of them immediately switched sides and left him unable to seize his prize. They were of preservation all along.
That's an interesting long-term plan, because Ruin's interesting because he does rely on other things so much, and the thing, he's pretty crafty with it too, So it's interesting to give him something that he would depend on,
His hubris is his downfall.
Yeah, and yep, there you go. That's what I'm trying to say. I lost my train of thought.
Yeah, sorry, interrupting you, but yeah.
No, I lost my train of thought. I was just going to fizzle out into nothing. No, it's really interesting to see that idea explored, and the Lord Ruler's a hero after all, right, Sheta?
Yep, I knew it.
Mm-hmm.
I knew he was a clever little guy.
The most I would get him would be the term anti-villain.
Nope. He was a great man.
He was the actual hero of ages, for real.
Mm-hmm. Yep, the true hero of ages, that's right.
Well, he's not. It's...
Hashtag the Lord Ruler did everything right.
Thank the Lord Ruler for himself.
He's not the hero of ages. That is
No, I don't want to hear you. Hey. A prophecy perhaps wrongly read, it may be.
No.
I think it was a tie. Yep.
I will not dignify that even with a response. So we'll just go into the chapter. So Damu tells Elend about how he had led the people from Luthadel to the pits of Hathsin. He had sent messengers back to Elend, but they had never arrived. And they also get word that a massive koloss army is currently heading towards the pits. Elend asks what happened in Luthadel, and Damu says that Penrod went mad and pretty much started a house war. And Damu says that the people fled because of Kelsier. Kelsier had appeared to the people and told them to flee to the caverns. Elend tells Damu to give all the soldiers their allomantic medals and see what they can burn, because they have been changed, and they are going to need every one of them. And we go to Sazed, and Sazed wakes up, and he sees just a whole bunch of mist wraiths all around him. The Kandra had sacrificed themselves, so that way they cannot be made tools of ruin. And Sazed knows that he has to protect the Atium now, and not let their sacrifice be in vain. So Sazed heads to the Trust Warren, and finds some koloss that did not pull out their spikes. And these koloss are being led by Kanpar, and are removing the cover to the Atium. And then Sazed spots a bag lying on the ground, and realizes that it is his bag, which has all of his metal mines in it. Kanpar looks over and he sees Sazed. And then Sazed taps his speed, that's on the little lock that he had, and quickly runs over and grabs his bag. He pours out his metal mines and puts a couple of them on. He closes the door, and then he uses his pewter and iron to raise his strength and weight in order to hold the door shut. These are the same rings from a year ago, and he had filled them slightly after the siege of Luthadel, until he just stopped wearing all of the metal mines, so he knows that these ones will not last long. And he whispers that he is going to need some help. Then we're back to Elend, and Elend meets up with the soldiers that had seen Kelsier. And Elend hears a voice whispering his name, and he also wonders where Vin went. A scout arrives and says that the koloss are heading this way and will arrive before the night is over. And he thinks that the voice he is hearing in his head is Vin's voice. And he goes out and follows where he feels like it is leading him. And he is led up to a hill which has the entrance into the Kandra homeland. Elend heads inside and sees some mist wraiths as he goes farther in. And just figures that, this must be where mist wraiths come from. And then he sees Sazed holding a door closed. But he surprises Sazed, which causes Sazed to mess up for a moment, and then the door just swings open. All the Kandra burst out, and Sazed tells Elend to stop them. And since the Kandra are not really big fighters, Elend and Damu easily take down all of them. And then Elend asks Sazed where they currently are, and Sazed explains everything to him. And he also tells them that this is where the Lord Ruler's ATM is. But Elend doesn't care much about the ATM, and he sends Sazed out to bring all of the people from the pits into the caves before the sun comes back and burns the land and the koloss arrive. Elend right now has one goal: survival. Anything else from this chapter you want to go over?
I read through these so quickly. These are not separate chapters in my mind at all. I did not pause and contemplate each chapter. I just zipped through. Because I'm how do you stop now? There? Oh, yeah. Well, survival. That's been the theme, like the survivor.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting how often that comes around. Because what more can you do, against these kind of forces?
Yeah. And that's what preservation is, surviving and stuff.
Yeah.
I did feel kind of sad for the Kandra.
Yeah. Well, we didn't get to know them that well besides...
But they're just creatures too, creatures kind of being manipulated. And big one is that they're not made for battle, so just them getting torn up by superpowered people just seemed really sad. They're so ill prepared, their bones are made of glass, so it was kind of
And we will go on to chapter 81, which is the big chapter.
Mm.
And to go along with that and with everything else, we have another big epigraph. Snapping has always been the dark side of allomancy. A person's genetic endowment may make them a potential allomancer, but in order for the power to manifest, the body must be put through extraordinary trauma. Though Elend spoke of how terrible his beating was, during our day, unlocking allomancy in a person was easier than it had once been, for we had the infusion of preservation's power into the human bloodline via the nuggets granted to nobility by the Lord Ruler. When preservation set up the Mist, he was afraid of Ruin escaping his prison. In those early days, before the Ascension, the Mist began to snap people as they did during our time, but this action of the Mist was one of the only ways to awaken allomancy in a person, for the genetic attributes were buried too deeply to be brought out by simple beating. The Mists of that day created Mistings only. Of course, there were no Mistborn until the Lord Ruler made use of the nuggets. The people misinterpreted the Mist's intent, as the process of snapping allomancers caused some, particularly the old and the young, to die. This hadn't been Preservation's desire, but he'd given up most of his consciousness to form Ruin's prison, and the Mists had been left to work as best they could without specific direction. Ruin, subtle as ever, knew he couldn't stop the Mists from doing their work. However, he could do the unexpected and encourage them. And so, he helped make them stronger. That brought death to the planets. That brought death to the plants of the world, and created the threat that became known as the Deepness.
Oh.
Oh, didn't you already read this?
Yeah, but I didn't get it like that.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so Smoke Monster was just made by, I won't say in case people haven't watched.
I knew you were going to bring that up because there's a lot of similarities there. In these chapters.
I've probably asked you, Joe, already, but has Brandon Sanderson talked about watching Lost? Is he a fan of Lost?
Yes, I know he has.
Okay.
He even has he also uses in a story, he uses a similar element of the flashbacks in there, so where he slowly builds up a person's backstory through flashbacks.
Okay.
Wait, when was this written again?
So Mistborn would be right in the middle of Lost.
I see. Well, there you go. That checks out.
I think it was Mistborn was 2006, 2007, 2008.
Let's see. Perfect timing.
And one other thing with the whole snapping stuff that I didn't bring up on last week's episode, but I meant to, was another hint at the Mist were giving people powers. Was we were told that only like Ska were the ones being made sick by the Mist. It did not affect the terrorists, and it did not affect the nobles. And that was because terrorists, they don't get misting powers anyway, so they're not being affected by it. And nobles, they already, in their lifetime, they would have been beaten a lot, so if they could get powers, they already would have gotten them.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So it was just another hint.
You can't call that a hint. How would I think of that way back then? Putting it all together in this book, yeah, maybe, but...
Well, that was stuff given in this book. It was just another hint where all put together, it makes perfect sense. At the time, it's more like, what the hell's going on? But it was all sorts of stuff, like wondering, like, why were only this group being affected by the Mist? Why was only the old and the, like, really young being the ones dying?
I have kind of a question. So, Elend got his powers because he ate the bead, though, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
You had those beads where, I'll just say it because the book doesn't say it, but it's the metal that the beads are, they're called lerasium. So you have
great. You just spoiled it. Just kidding.
I will tell you, that is not a spoiler. There's not going to be some big reveal of lerasium.
Yeah, not in these books. What about one he's writing right now? And we'll be like, holy shit.
It was lerasium all this time.
It was lerasium.
I will tell you, you don't that name. You don't need to worry about it.
We'll see.
But yeah, because you had the beads, and those just gave people the Mistborn powers.
Okay.
That's why Elend could get that, even though he could not become a misting before in his life.
I see. So he's not even special. Just kidding.
Jeez.
Don't come at me.
All right. So, chapter begins with Vin and Ruin, and Vin smiles at Ruin, but he says that she just influenced a single person. He asks if she thinks that she has won. He has an army of hundreds of thousands of koloss, and Vin realizes that he is right. He has a much, much larger army than she has. Plus, once the sun rises, then the world will burn. She feels a hatred, which felt incompatible with her power. Ruin's going to kill everyone that she loves. So she attacks Ruin, and there is friction between them. Ruin is surprised by the attack, but rebuffs her. The power was too well matched between the two. We go back to Elend, and Elend's looking at all the ATM, while Sazed says that Ruin cannot get it. That would mean the instantaneous end of the world. But Sazed says that everything will be alright because Vin is the hero of ages, and she will arrive. And Demu tells Elend that with everyone here, they have about 1,000 troops, and that there are 4 entrances into the caverns. Elend asked about Allomancers, but Demu says that none of the Mistfallen gained any power from any of the metals. Demu begins to believe that they are all going to die. And Elend feels frustration because it is just like Luthadel and Fadrix. He needed Vin's power in Luthadel, and Ruin had simply left Fadrix. Elend could not save the people. And he looks at the ATM bead and realizes that the men that had left with Demu had been sick for longer than all the others. 1/16 of the people who had gotten sick were sick for longer, and there are 16 medals. So he has Demu swallow the ATM bead, and Demu's eyes widen.
Don't take weird drugs, Demu. Don't do it.
I think in this case it was a pretty good idea.
We'll never put a weird thing a guy says, eat this.
Even when the guy's your emperor?
Especially. I know, I feel like most people won't be in this situation, so it's not relevant.
Let's frickin' hope not. Nothing would make me happier than to never be in this situation.
Vin watches all the koloss and then tries to attack Ruin again, but once again he rebuffs her. And she looks back at Elend as Elend gives a speech to the soldiers. Tells them that they will fight, and they will die, but each second that they last will give the people inside the caverns another second to breathe. The soldiers head out to the 4 entrances to the caverns. Vin fears as she watches Elend charge the koloss, but then he begins burning atium, and killing the koloss. Elend uses the ATM and a sword to slaughter countless koloss. And all the other soldiers, who are ATM Mistines, are fighting and killing koloss as well. And whenever Elend's ATM runs low, he heads back to the entrance, where Sazed gives him another bag of ATM and heads back into battle.
This part felt so dangerous. You're like, this is a very precious, it's not a drug, but, a thing, and it's just like eating it by the handful like cereal. Like
That's not how I imagined it, but yeah.
That's what I imagine the ATM looks like Kix cereal or like Trix or something, and then they're just like eating them like by the spoonful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think at one point Elend mentioned like a stomach just full of metal or something like that.
Oh God.
Well, it's not there for long. He burns it up.
Gosh, I have nightmares about eating metal, and it just...
Is that before this book or since this book?
Well, no, I've always had weird dreams where I eat weird stuff, but now that now that I know there's a whole story to it, I have a lot of them now.
That's weird.
Yeah, but you need to try to eat them at least once. Maybe you have a power from it.
Yeah.
I would have been drinking...
Disclaimer to all viewers, do not sue us, do not eat random bits of metal to see if you have powers.
It's not random. We know exactly which metals give you which powers.
Yeah, don't eat any metals at all. Just don't do it.
But you can try it with ATM.
Or you can also drink gold if it's in Goldschlager.
But do not bite into a bar of gold.
Unless you're testing to make sure it actually is real gold.
Yeah, they do it in cartoons all the time.
Yeah, just don't eat it, okay? Joe, why are you trying to get us sued here?
Alright. So Ruin rages and tries to attack Elend, but Vin blocks him. And she says that Ruin is wrong. He says that he is invincible because all things break apart, but she tells him that there are things that fight against him. Love, life, growth. The life of a person is more than the chaos of their passing. And we go to Sazed, and he and others that cannot fight watch the battle from just inside the cave. And Sazed is now wearing all of his metal mines. Garv, the leader of the Church of the Survivor, asks Sazed where she is. And Sazed reassures them that Vin will come. The hero will come. Elend continues to fight and kill the koloss with his ATM. He has been fighting for hours. Even though he is burning ATM, he is beginning to feel tired from all the fighting and is having to use pewter in order to stay up. And then he begins to hear some of his ATM soldiers die. And then he stops when he sees a man with a single spike in his head on the battlefield. Marsh has arrived, and Marsh begins burning ATM. And
here I was happy that Marsh had survived last time.
No, I did not expect Marsh to be such a mini-boss like this entire time. Like...
I had thought the whole time he was left there so when they cured the world, he would ironically be one of the few who survived. No, instead he shows up to do this.
Well, he's Ruin's last Inquisitor left.
Yeah, well.
And then we go to the POV of Human, the koloss. And Human leads some koloss into the caverns. Ruin forces them past some people without killing them, and is leading them to the Trust Warren. And then back to Elend, and he's fighting Marsh. Marsh had gotten the ATM from a conjurer that was carrying it in a bag. He and Elend fight, and while fighting, Elend's pewter runs out. But then Elend begins to feel himself become stronger, get some power, and he looks up, and for a second, he thinks he sees like a misty version of Vin up in the air, giving him power. And then Marsh and Elend, they run at each other for another clash. As they are about to clash, Elend burns ATM with duralumin. And with this, he gets a flash of knowledge that saturates his mind. And he says, I see now. And with their clash, Elend gets Marsh in the neck with his sword. But Marsh had buried his axe in Elend's chest. Marsh removes the axe and grabs Elend by the neck and tells him that he is lost. Elend whispers to him, Lost? We've won, Marsh. And then we get a quick shot back to Human, who's in the Trust Warren, and he looks into the pit, where all the ATM is supposed to be, but the pit is empty. And then Elend tells Marsh that all the ATM is gone. They were never going to defeat the koloss. They had used this battle in order to burn up all of the ATM. Ruin's body is gone, and that's why they have won. Elend thinks that hopefully this means that he has saved his people. He thinks that it's up to you now, Vin. I've done what I can. And then Marsh decapitates Elend.
No, we don't need to hear that part. No. Everyone lives happily ever after the end. That I remember. Right, Sheta?
No.
No?
You can't delude yourself, Justin.
Oh, dang.
Sheta, your theory was everyone dies, but it's happy.
Yeah, that's what happy for.
Sheta's theory was the world was going to end. And it would be happy somehow.
And that's basically what happened. But
this whole time, just like when I'm reading Kelsier, I'm like, wow, how is Elend going to get out of this one? It was really interesting and quite nice of him, too, to switch POVs between the deaths so we didn't die in his head. And you just get the feeling of everything falling apart. You know, the things, like they say, holding back don't really matter anymore. So you can have a different perspective. It was a really interesting thing to read because not a lot of stories go this route, you know?
Yeah.
Or are somewhat reluctant to. But, like, there's those moments when you do need everything to go bad so you can do what you have to do. I mean, spoilers for anyone who has a thing they want to watch but hasn't watched it yet. It reminds me of in The Matrix when they're on the way at the end, you know? And Trinity has to die for Neo to make the sacrifice at the end. And even though it's so sad, it's just how it is. You wouldn't do it if you had something to live for.
Yeah, I remember first time when I was reading this. So, you know, I listen to audiobooks while working. So all this stuff, like this whole ending, it was all in like one work day. So Vin gets the power, she ascends and stuff, she becomes a god. And in my mind, I'm trying to think, all right, now how's Vin going to become a human again so that way she can spend her time with Elend? Yeah. So I'm trying to think of that. And then Elend gets decapitated anyway, so it's like, oh, shit.
Once we saw Vin as a big weird cloud or whatever talking to Ruin, and once she got the power of literal god, I did not expect that she was going to be able to back. I never ever in a million years thought Elend was going to die. That didn't even cross my mind as a possibility. I thought it would be one of those, don't worry guys, she lives on out there, and Elend has a knowing sad feeling, you know, like a melancholy ending like that. Not both of our protagonists are just dead. Very, very, very hard read there, personally.
Alright, so back to the story. So Ruin rages and thrashes, but then he tries to gloat about killing Elend. And Vin looks down at Elend, but she had let him go back at the Well of Ascension. This past year had been a blessing, an extension. She will always love him, but she will not cease to function. Ruin tries to gloat that he will kill all of her remaining friends, and Vin thinks about her friends that have already died. She will not allow their sacrifices to be in vain, and she throws herself at Ruin in an attack again. This time, when Ruin tries to rebuff her, Vin doesn't go back, but pushes forward. She tells Ruin that Preservation could never have defeated him, so he put a bit of himself in people. These people would be of both Ruin and Preservation, something that could both destroy and protect. Preservation had always intended for this to happen. Ruin thinks that this was his plan, but actually it was Preservation's plan. She tells Ruin that he had created the thing that wound up killing him. He also made one huge final mistake. He should not have killed Elend, because he was the only reason that she had left to live.
Yeah.
And Vin pushes more against Ruin, and their opposing forces melded. And with a surge of power, Vin bade farewell to the world and took Ruin with her. Their minds puffed away like mist under a hot sun.
You see, yeah. If you gotta kill... Yeah, the end. That would be quite a jib. Again, it's always interesting. If you gotta kill a character, like Vin dying here would be too sad, but because Elend's already dead, you have a little of what she has too. You're like, well, who cares? You know? It's just weird. It's always weird, that feeling.
And it goes back to the character development of Vin throughout Well of Ascension that I had brought up then, where throughout the entire of Well of Ascension, her number one goal was to always protect Elend, no matter what. Elend must survive, Elend must live, all this. Then the end of that book, that's where Elend's dying, and she decides, nope, Elend will die, so that way the world can be saved. She lets him die, and she pretty much gave him up then. So then when he comes back alive, and that's what allows her to be able to do this, and because if that had never happened, if everything else was the same, but Elend had not almost died and she let him die, Elend dying here would have broken her.
If she had practice.
Anything else from this battle chapter you two want to go over?
They're too young to die. I'm sad.
Yeah, that is. One thing that I do always feel sad about this ending is that Vin and Elend never really had time to just be a couple and with each other.
Yeah.
They become
I thought
a couple.
They would have a baby.
And then they...
But there's no time to have a family. Yeah.
Yeah.
And their entire time as a couple, they wound up having to fight other factions and wars and stuff like that. And
yeah, it's interesting people like this who their entire lives from a very young age was wrapped in wartime, and like this was basically all they knew and what they did with their free time. And they had each other, and that was something.
All right. Well, then we'll move on to our last numbered chapter, chapter 82. Once Vin died, the end came quickly. We were not prepared for it, but even all the Lord Ruler's planning could not have prepared us for this. How did one prepare for the end of the world itself? It begins with Sazed and Damu. They're at the entrance to the cavern, and Sazed watches Elend's body fall. But Sazed says that Vin will come, and then he sees two bodies fall to the ground out of midair, and Sazed runs out to them. And also during this time, the sun has been rising, so it is getting warmer out. And the bodies that Sazed finds one is Vin, and the other one is an unknown red-haired man. Sazed checks Vin for a pulse, but she is dead. Sazed yells to the sky that Ruin's power is broken, but the world will still be destroyed. And mist begins flowing out of Vin's body, and a black smoke rises out from the other man. And Sazed quickly touches them, and he can feel power. And then Sazed begins to think about the prophecies. They had used gender-neutral pronouns, but it could be because the hero was really neither gender. The hero would be rejected by his people, yet he would save them. Not a warrior, though he would fight. Not born a king, but would become one anyway. And Sazed thinks that he is just a mere man. He says up to the sky that he cannot do this. He will do as the Lord Ruler had and only make things worse. He says he is no hero. And then he looks at his coppermine bracers on his arms and thinks about how the prophecies always said the hero will bear the future on their arms. Not their shoulders or their hands, but on their arms. And then he slams his arms into the two powers, and while taking them in, he releases out all of the knowledge of his coppermines. Sazed takes in the power of both ruin and preservation, and he works them together so they don't destroy, but instead create. And he uses the knowledge from the Keepers to look at the religions of the past. Using the religions, he's able to move the planet to where it should be in the air, in the space. He reshapes the continent. He fixes human physiology. He restores animal life and brought back plants and flowers. He altered the koloss so that way they could rejoin humanity or form their own society. He restored the Conjurer's blessing and also put within them a way where they could choose to die if they wished. And he knows that the religions were not useless after all. All had a little bit of truth. After this, Sazed still held on to the power. It did not get let go like when Rashik or Vin had used it before. And the two powers, they had joined together. In fact, he could tell they belonged together. He didn't know how they had split, but he hoped he could find the answer. And Sazed would watch over the world. The Hero of Ages was not a hero that came once in the ages, but a hero that would span the ages. And Sazed was neither ruin nor preservation, but both. And that's the end of the book, besides the epilogue.
Man, that got epic fast. Jesus. It's strange because, I mean, we knew it was Sazed we suspected for a bit and we knew a bit here, but it's surreal to watch it. Sazed is a pretty small, humble guy, even the big main character, you know?
Yeah. Sorry, but I had such a bad flashback when that whole reveal was happening.
Oh god, to what?
To freaking Sucker Punch, when they're like, this is your story actually all along.
No.
Sazed. And I was
No.
I kept telling myself no too. It's like, no, don't think of that. Don't think of that.
Oh God,
I have not watched Sucker Punch, even
bro,
though
you don't need to.
You gotta watch it to
brother,
know my reference.
Justin's brother bought me it on DVD like 15 years ago as a joke, but I still have not watched it.
So you gotta watch it.
No, you don't.
Well, to get my reference, you have to watch it. So that's all.
I think it's fine.
Yes. In all honesty, I know like throughout the entire book, especially Sheta was trying to figure out who the person writing the epigraphs are. I have heard, since she was listening to the audiobook, there have been other people who have listened to the audiobook that felt like the audiobook spoiled them on it.
Yeah, no, it did, because that's what I kept thinking, because I was like, huh?
Well,
Oh.
The audiobook, the voice that Michael Kramer reads the epigraphs in, he uses the voice he uses for Sazed.
Yeah. I was like, this just sounds like his Sazed. So yeah, definitely.
So.
For a while, I thought maybe he just likes to read them very, because it's a big deal, but no. After a while, I was like, nope, that's just exactly the way Sazed enunciates things, and his, it's interesting that other people had that experience too.
Yeah, it's just the way he talks. It either had to be him or just some new character we'd never seen. There was a moment when I was worried it was Vin had ascended to like a different knowledge level and she was not even going to be the same character. I'm glad it was not.
Yeah, no, that's why I was like, maybe it's Hoyd, because maybe he's just
I don't
like
know who
this.
the fuck Hoyd is, Sheta. Why do you keep using that name?
Hoyd! How do you not know?
I liked your human theory, Sheta.
Yeah, I like that one. It's my favorite.
Are you glad that the koloss are going to be able to be human, or at least close to it? Have
be
sentience
human again. I'm
And-
glad to.
And the Kandra are back. It said they restored their blessing, so they're still alive.
Fuck the Kandra.
No, Tensoon.
Tensoon killed Orseer.
Is Orseer gonna be back?
No, he died.
No.
I just assume they can come back because they say later you can't do that. Yeah.
Yeah, he restored their blessings because they didn't die. They just pulled out their blessings, so that way they were just mist wraiths.
Okay. Gotcha.
All Sazed did was put those back into the bodies.
Gotcha. So no Orseer.
No, he's dead.
This is such a strange ending to me because we had 3 primary characters: Sazed, Elend, and Vin. Not counting Kelsier from the first book. And they're all gone. We lost all of them. It's such a strange feeling. Like I said before with the Matrix, at the end of that, at least you still had Morpheus left as your kind of like your entry point character, I left feeling like I had left this world. It's so strange to me. Because, I like the other characters, but these were our primary entries into the universe. And in this book, Tensoon as well.
You've got Spook?
Yeah, but Spook is...
Spook's what?
When I'm reading Spook, I'm not feeling like I am Spook, like I'm feeling with the other characters, Now, you and other people may feel differently, but to me, he doesn't feel like a, quote, primary character of like, things often go in trinities,
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, Spook was also pretty much more of a side character in the first 2 books.
Yeah, but I could see the argument in this book. He was a real bigger character, because I did feel that way about Tensoon in this book, because he was so involved with the plot of all the Kandra But Spook, even still, was he was at the whims of others for most of it. He never had a moment besides his rebellion, which was short, but where he was like, I'm a shaper of this world. Do you know what I mean by that, Sheta?
Yeah, I do. Spook definitely, I think he was made to feel like you're a surviving friend that you leave behind, definitely.
Yeah.
Like he's him and Ariane and his new girlfriend and stuff like that. Like they feel like the future, that we saved the world for.
I agree with you.
There's always those kind of characters in things like this. Like they get to live on. So even though we don't really want to see them because they aren't as interesting as our main characters, we're glad they still exist.
I wouldn't say they're not as interesting. That seems a bit harsh.
And speaking of Spook, so kind of like I was saying that the audiobook, Michael Kramer used Sazed's voice for the epigraphs. In the graphic audio version of the book, which is kind of does it like a radio drama with like fully voice acted and stuff. The epigraphs are read by the person who voices Spook using their Spook voice. So it's like Spook reading the book left over at the end.
Oh, that's pretty good. Yeah, I like that. I feel like that's gonna
No, that's
really
confusing.
take a lot
You're
from
supposed
the
to
book.
read it neutrally.
Yeah.
Neutral voice, like narrator, you know? Yeah, he was totally doing his Sazed voice for the things, too.
Oh, so is that why you had that so early, Sheta?
Yeah, that's what we were talking about, how other people who listened to the audiobook thought that as well, because
It's
felt like
just
they got
Spook.
spoiled.
Yeah, I would be really annoyed with that.
Yeah.
Well, to me, because first time I went through it, it was through audiobook. I never once thought it was Sazed. I just figured I never even thought like, oh, that's Sazed's voice he's using for the epigraphs. I just figured, all right, he's just talking. So I was very surprised at the end.
That's good.
Like the entire book, when I first went through it, I just figured from beginning to end, well, it's going to be Vin. It's got to be Vin. I never once questioned it. But also, I did go through it in like 3 days, so I didn't really have time to be sitting there and contemplating everything for weeks. Another fun thing is if you go back of the Final Empire, the prologue, the very first thing in there is the epigraph that says like the hero, they will carry the weight of the world on their arms. So pretty much it's telling you from very beginning, like the first sentence is, yep, Sazed is the hero of ages. Anything else from this chapter you two want to go over?
Yeah, I'm so fascinated by the red-haired guy. When Vin's up there, I'm starting to think that, because they were talking about what these forces are, that they're just not beings, really. I was starting to wonder. I really wanted to see who this guy was before, So I'm really glad we got to see that red-haired body, but I'm so curious to know more about him. How long has he been in there?
Yeah.
It also explained earlier, I was saying it was so fascinating that these things had personalities, but now it makes a lot more sense as to why.
A while back, I was saying how we were wondering if these entities are real gods or are they just more people with the powers, And now we know that they are just people, it seems like. Yeah, we know that they are here.
The entities, right?
Yeah, like Ruin and them.
Mm-hmm. The concept of this being some other force that's split is very fascinating. We're asking some. It's weird to end a book asking some really long back cosmological things that don't really matter to us, the reader, right now. It's just interesting. It was the same with how the first series ended, where they were like all these new magic systems and stuff, and also all these cities, and then we just cut away to a totally different thing. I wonder how this will be for that.
And to be fair, it's not just Brandon Sanderson that does it. I see that all the time in fantasy. It'll be done. You'll have most of the stuff will be answered, but there will always be some lingering questions in fantasy.
Well, that's fine. I don't need everything answered, especially not the cosmological origin of the universe and stuff like that.
I will give you some information, though, because it's something that
I don't want
it's just
it.
kind of... I'll still give it. It's not spoilery.
I don't want it.
I
like mysteries. I'm in the House of Mysteries, not the House of Secrets, personally.
Mm-hmm.
But
I don't want to put it together either because I'm still wondering how all of this has to do with the Cosmere and how it will connect and stuff, if it connects at all, and how it's supposed to be in the same universe as Elantris and stuff like that. So I don't really want to have too much
anything
information.
with that I would prefer not to know too, personally. Because that gets me thinking too many things. Just knowing about half that, like little bits of that, got me thinking too much about stuff for the end of this book. But, I don't know what the hell you're going to say, so I can't use my judgment.
I didn't even like knowing that other people talked about the powers in Elantris versus the powers in this. I thought that was answered already.
There was a big crisis crossover already?
Yeah.
Is that what you expected?
No.
I didn't expect that. No, God.
No. I will tell you.
It's some crossover where
No.
Serene's like, what's up? I'm Serene. And Ben's like, hi, I'm Ben.
No, Sheta. That sounds so corny. And I'm sorry, Joe. Sheta, imagine how difficult that would be to do in a book where you can't see anybody, too,
Well, you just
when they all
described them.
when they
That
all
would
meet
be-
at the Monitor's base, and then they're like, "Yep," and then Serini was over here, and you're like, "I haven't read that book for 20 years. Who was Serini again?"
No, it's nothing like that. People are always trying to. They always like to have fun, figure out how different magic systems will work with each other. It's not something that you're reading books and all of a sudden it's just like, oh shit, like this person's using like 8 that's not gonna happen.
That would be fucking badass. No, he'll do that when he does the crisis in 10 years. You
Right.
disappointed,
Well,
Sheta? You were hoping for that?
I am. I was. I was like,
Oh,
I
man.
can't wait to have Raiden meet Elend. They would really
You
hit
think
it
it'd be
off.
more like Dark Tower? Is that it, Sheta? Where things are kind
Yeah.
of tied together? And you see the guy from that one book. I forget what it was called. The
Yeah.
vampire one.
hmm But in a more fantasy like world that has been worlds that are really built up and stuff, you know.
all right. Well, let's go on to the epilogue then. Unless there's anything else you want to talk about with Sazed becoming a god.
I mean, there is, but nothing that wouldn't just be repeating ourselves over and over of, wow, that was crazy. I mean, I really like the theme of, you know, the whole book's been about finding religion, finding faith, that it's just in this really blatant metaphor at the end of, you know, one religion may not have it, but all together they do share a common truth you can find, that you see a lot of people who are a little too rationalist to be religious come to at the end.
Yeah, it's
But
a
I
nice
did like
feeling.
It is.
And I did like how at the end it's like going through all the religions where it's like, oh yep, and because of this religion that Sazed had preached to this person at this point, he knows how to do this. And it's like, so it's like throughout the books you'd seen all these religions brought up and all this different stuff, and then it all comes together in this moment. So it's just something that you just felt was just these little moments throughout the books, and at the end it's like all that shit was important.
I could see it in the movie. They would do a flashback to the moment he's telling Ham or Breeze,
Oh
and they're
God,
like laughing.
that's like the corniest way to do it.
And then we get to see a little bit too of our old friends and maybe Kelsier, who's
Oh man, you just called how they're gonna do that scene, Sheta, and it's gonna be, depending on who directs it, it's quite cringy.
This is 10 years of movies coming to such a beautiful head, you know, like.
Oh God.
If they make Mistborn, I hope they don't do it. I hope they do it like they did Lord of the Rings. Film all 3 of them, and then just have like a 1-year break in between each movie.
Dude, it's not going to happen. You're going to get 2 movies, it'll be canceled, and you'll never get the 3rd one.
Don't say that, Justin.
Or, they're going to plan to split the 3rd book into 2 movies, of course. And then it'll take 10 years just to get the trilogy out.
It's different now.
You see how long they take between sequels nowadays a lot of the time.
Yeah, I do. Okay.
Jeez.
If things change in that way, I will be happy to see it. If not, then I'll just go cry.
Well, like I said, it depends on how they plan on making it. Like, Wicked, there's only a 1 year between the 2 parts of Wicked.
Yeah, that's because they had their crap together. A lot of movies now don't seem to have that.
I was going to say, Brandon, it's like, that's why he doesn't just sell off the rights to the first person. Like, because he doesn't need the money, so he's waiting for, the right director, someone who this is like a passion project for them.
Yeah.
And gives it.
See, I hope that. I hope he will be like Robert Kirkman, who will hold off until they get all the say they want and are a bit more protective with their work than people who are just like, whoever comes and knocking first, sure, but I hope so. I think he cares a bit more about his fans than other writers and creators who don't give a shit about us.
Oh, I wouldn't. I'd take the money right away.
Well, and also I think with writers, it also depends, like, they're told one thing by the people making it, and then something else happens. I mean...
Well, that's why you get it in writing. Yeah.
That's where George R. Martin, when he made his blog post, was only up 2 hours, where he was complaining about House of the Dragon, because he was promised some stuff by the guy creating it, and now the guy's doing different stuff, and it's just like, what the hell? And yeah, so he put the blog post up, and then Pat was forced to take it down. Because he has like a non-disparagement agreement with HBO.
Yeah, never signed that one.
Yeah, so, I would never sign away my freedom of speech.
For the right money for a project, I'd sign it away and just let him put out some shit.
Never.
So everyone who's buying up the rights left and right, come on to me. I've got a few franchises you can horrifically ruin.
So, all right, now let's get into the epilogue. So, we're with Spook for the epilogue. And Spook wakes up, and Beldre is surprised to find that Spook's body is completely healed. And he goes over to Breeze, who somehow has furniture in the cavern that they're in. And they decide to leave out the cavern. And Spook leaves and just sees a field of green grass. The sky is blue, and there is no ash in the sky. And Spook nearby sees another trap door, which opens up and Ham exit out of it. So the group, they walk around and they find all the caverns pretty much have been moved to this general area and people are coming out of all of them. And Damu says that during all this going on, he was going in and out of consciousness, but he saw the survivor saving the world. And then Spook heads to a hill that is covered by the flowers from Mare's picture and thinks that Kelsier's dream finally came true. And then in the middle of the flowers, he sees Vin and Elend's bodies lying there.
This part was so mean. For 1 second, I was like,
Just
oh,
to hammer
good.
it in.
Yeah, I was like, what an asshole.
No body, no death, so he's got to make sure.
Breeze and Ham wail as they check out the bodies, and Spook finds a leather tome right nearby. He opens it, and it says, I am, unfortunately, the hero of ages. So pretty much that tome is the epigraphs we've been reading this week. And a piece of paper falls from the tome. Spook picks it up and looks at it, and it is the picture of the flower on one side. And then on the other side is this note for Spook. In the note, Sazed says he tried to bring Vin and Elend back, but was not able to. He had spoken to them, though, and they are happy with where they are. He tells them that the leather tome contains the events leading up to the end of the world, and Sazed also has many books nearby which are filled verbatim with all the knowledge from his copper mines. He says that rebuilding will be difficult. He tells Spook the message that Spook had sent with Gorodel had saved them in the end, and that the people are going to look for leadership. Sazed has also made Spook a Mistborn, and has healed the damage that Spook had done to his body. It was at Kelsier's request. He also says there are 4 more metals that nobody knows about, and that Spook should poke around and figure them out. And at the very end, Spook looks up to the blue sky, and Beldre says that he looks troubled. But Spook shakes his head and says that he isn't. In fact, he thinks that everything is going to be alright. Finally. And that's the end of the Mistborn trilogy.
Wow. Not a long time coming.
Well, they answered a question I've had, too. When Sazed says that he's spoken with Elend and Vin, that he's spoken with Kelsier, and that souls don't return when you fix, that there is some form of... that souls exist in that sense, and there is some form beyond. So that's interesting to learn. I didn't think we'd get an official answer to that.
Oh, like afterlife stuff?
Or whatever the equivalent of is in this world. I don't know. You know,
after death, yeah.
Yeah.
And hey, Spook's a Mistborn.
Yay. I'm going to be honest. I don't give a shit about Spook. I love Spook. I like him. But if he died, I'd be like, oh, that sucks. It's everyone else who's gone that I'm like unhappy about.
You were wishing for Spook's death for years.
I was never wishing for Spook's death.
No, but anytime we predicted, you're like, no, I don't remember if you predicted that he died.
I predicted Spook's death many times.
Okay.
Sheta,
we got
so
pretty close to it.
I did,
Sheta,
but I didn't want it to happen. Like,
throughout pretty much all of Well of Ascension, you were convinced that Spook was the Khandra.
I was I was worried that he was. I was happy when he wasn't.
Man, and this whole like final epilogue scene, this is another scene that I feel just would be great for like a whole like movie or whatnot, because you'd have a trilogy throughout the entire. It'd be like darker tone, you know, ash, red sun, brown plants and stuff. So then at the end, you get like a Wizard of Oz moment where Luke walks a cave, and then it's just bright green, blue, all this. After pretty much 3 whole movies, just finally seeing green and blue, it will just be a really big moment.
What's that? Why is it? What's green? It's a strange color. They're saying for the grass. That's a weird color for grass.
What character were you doing a voice of there?
Ariane. That was Ariane.
Why is she Southern?
I always imagined her as some kind of Southern debutante girl. Like the character in Frog Princess, her friend. That's what I imagine. And she's always dressed in pink and she's very girly.
Mm.
What's that?
Anything from this epigraph or epilogue you two want to go over?
Well, as the book wanted to, seeing Spook and them all be okay, it does give some semblance of okayness.
You complained.
I complain that that's not the character that I feel very connected to.
I don't give a shit about
book.
Spook, is what you said.
I don't. If he would have died, I would have been sad in the normal way. But it's interesting because we are now done with this, so we really are done. We're gone, you know? It's interesting that the second the world gets fixed, they're like, okay, well, that's boring now. Let's leave. A nice, happy, normal world? No, we wanted this dark, moody, and ash-filled, mist-filled nightmare world instead.
Yeah. Like, oh, now everyone's just going to live happily ever after. Boring. Spook's going to marry Beldra. Ariane and Breeze are going to be all happy together without any of the restrictions society put on them before. Like, it's all fine.
And Demu can be with that terrorist woman that was eyeing him up.
Oh, yeah. Everyone's got somebody. Weird.
I'm surprised they allowed Demu to make it out of this. That's the one that shocked me.
Yeah.
So,
I'm proud.
Fun fact about that. So Demu his name is actually based off of one of Brandon Sanderson's friends.
Oh, so he couldn't go to kill him?
No, the guy had a rule. Yeah, you can use the name, but I have to live. So that's one thing where I wanted to wait until the end, because if you knew from the beginning that Demu was not allowed to die, that would get rid of
why in God's name would you tell me that at the beginning? I would have been so mad.
Yeah, especially since there was a scare.
Uh-huh. It's because Demu lived was a whole part.
The annotations when Demu first shows up on the website has that, so... But, yeah, that's
there's a reason I don't read annotations while I'm reading a book.
But yeah, so that's the thing is, Demu had to live throughout the trilogy. So you being surprised it was always going to be like that.
I am surprised. I thought he was fucked for sure.
Kind of like there are other characters throughout this book and that are named after some Brand Sanderson's friends, like the random guy Wellen, who was the random ska guard that saw Vanatak Set's mansion. Later saw that was named after his friend Dan Wells. There were a bunch of other ones too, and same thing with some of Brand Sanderson's other books. He'll put some of his friends' names in there. I think Yeoman's name came from a like charity fundraiser he did, where he's like, all right, whoever bets the most money on this auction, you can have your name in the book. And the person who won it was a person named like Yeoman or something like that.
As Yeoman of all characters.
Yep.
It's better when Mark Miller does that and he lets you be the main character.
Oh, yeah,
when did Mark Miller do that?
Oh, a lot of his own created books, like in Kick-Ass it was that. I think Nemesis did that too. He does that a lot.
Did he do it in Wanted?
No, he wasn't doing that yet back then. I don't think.
Superior, right?
Huh?
Superior.
The Superior? Oh, Superior. Yeah. Yes, you're correct. And it's always for charity too. And he gets a lot of money for it. So, yeah. Dave Lazuski, or however you pronounce it, is a real guy from Kick-Ass. Whatever it is.
Lebowitz.
I don't think it's that.
No, I'm just kidding.
Any last thoughts about the end of this book?
This is a mean series.
I think it was pretty unhappy the whole time, so I guess I never really thought we would be happy. But
sacrifice is a huge theme of this thing.
Yeah. I guess, and the tone of it was very religious, so I felt like something big like this would happen. So I wasn't that shook when that happened and stuff. It all made sense in a way.
For me, first time I went through it, personally, I thought the ending seemed a bit abrupt. I don't know why. Like, I was hoping for like a Return of the King thing where you get like another chapter 2 of the scene or something. It's like, yep, 5 years ago, this stuff. But as I went through this time, I'm just like, you know what? No, that's not needed. It was good the way it is.
Yeah, I don't know what you'd add, but
No, that was just like I said when first time I went through it. I was hoping for like a little like 5 years later and like just seeing a quick shot of them like after they rebuild. But this is like no, just ended on the little optimism. Everything's good now.
Also, like everything was really fast in this book, so like there wasn't too much time between. I wonder, like we're not gonna see Spook and Belja's kid, who they named after Vin and stuff.
oh
Like,
god, no, thank you. See, I always don't like those much because they mean, that's it. I don't want to write any more of this shit. Is always what it feels like when they do that.
yeah, does feel very final.
Mm-hmm.
And also, it could be like, I think first time I read it, I had also just finished reading a whole bunch of different manga series where I noticed that almost every single manga series always ended with like a time skip in like the last like two.
Yeah, a lot of them do.
Out of all the ones I read before I went into Jump Force, the only one that did not have that was Yu-Gi-Oh!
Well, that's weird. I don't want to see Yu-Gi-Oh! As a grown man. That sounds weird.
All right. Well, let's move on to the characters of the week.
Gosh, I guess I'll have to pick Sazed for realizing his place and accepting it, even though he wasn't ready and or to learn that or accept it. He just did it because all the things he's done and learned this whole time has led him there, and he accepted it.
That's a very convincing reason, Sheta.
What?
You make me want to change mine.
Oh,
But I'm gonna have to go, of course, with the red-haired guy. No, I'm not doing that.
well, that was a good one too.
No, God, no. Fuck that guy. He's an asshole. I'm gonna have to go. I have to go with Vin for, Jesusing to save the whole world, basically. Just that whole idea of using your human stuff to kill God is very interesting to me. To liberate your kind.
Yeah, you would like that.
Mm-hmm. And how she reacted to Elend's death of just like, appreciating what she had, but also being somewhat thankful that she did have the power to put an end to this, and seeing the plan that some entity, preservation or what was before, we don't know exactly, had put in motion for her, and then taking it, because things were not good, for the world.
All right. And then for my character, I'm going to have to go with Elend. His plan just to all the ATM, eat it, burn it all up while fighting, just to destroy what Ruin wants. And pretty much going out into that battle, doing this plan, knowing that it will end with his death. He did it all in order to save the people, which has been pretty much what he's wanted to do his entire time as king and emperor, is just to save the people.
That's interesting that we picked the three main characters.
Hey, we did.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you're going to say it like that, then I'll switch to human.
Human didn't do very much here.
All right, let's go over to the quotes of the week then.
A lot of these things are just super long. I don't know if I want to read a.
You got a 5-page quote? Is that it?
Yeah. All right. I'll just do the short version of it. So it's all the stuff. It's all the religions and stuff that Sazed had found, or that had in his mind and stuff, and he was using it to fix everything. So he finally Sazed took the religion of the Larsta, the one that Kelsier's wife Mare had believed in. Its priests had composed poetry while meditating. From these poems, and from a scrap of paper that Mare had given to Kelsier, who had given it to Vin, who had given it to Sazed, he learned of the beautiful things that the world had once held, and he restored flowers to the plants that had once borne them. The religions in my portfolio weren't useless after all, he thought. The power flowing from him in remaking the world. None of them were. Not one had the whole truth, but they all had truth. So, yep. I just really liked that concluding Sazed's journey, and including all these themes and and things from all the characters that he like all the things they cared about in the world. It was just nice. I really liked he built this whole idea. Brandon Sanderson built this whole idea of what's Sazed's people again?
Terrace men.
Terrorist, yeah. Yeah, how he specifically is a person who studies religions and stuff just to tell this story. So I think that's pretty good and pretty cool to do. Like an idea of someone who carries all a people who carry all the knowledge in a person and they pass it down and down, and to have our main guy be the religion carrying person in creating this world with all that knowledge. I think that's a pretty big moment.
Yeah, agreed. It's always interesting somebody who can sum up all the themes in the book so blatantly without it seeming corny or preachy. You wouldn't even really notice if you don't care about that kind of thing. You just think it's a natural flow of the story.
Yeah, he made Sazed just enough of a poetic character to pull that off without it seeming like, oh, you know, because he's religious, he's poetic in his soul like that. His soul. It was just a perfect blend of that to pull it off.
Okay, my quote.
Oh my god, I was like, who the fuck just joined our Discord?
Well, he got really upset with you not liking the act.
Yeah, now I don't want to talk anymore.
I'm sorry, bring the Englishman back. I like him. Go ahead.
Mine's actually pretty simple. It's just, it's actually a couple parts. It's first, so few left of the original crew, she thought. Kelsier dead so long ago. Doxson and Clubs killed at the Battle of Luthadel. Yaden dead with his soldiers. Orseer taken at Zane's command. Marsh fallen to become an inquisitor, and the others who joined us now gone as well. Tindwyl, Tensund, Elend. And then her thinking, did Ruin think she would let their sacrifices be for nothing? Then she attacks him. Thinks about how preservation could never destroy him. But then, as Ruin cries out, says, you created the thing that can kill you, Ruin. And you just made one huge final mistake. You shouldn't have killed Elend. You see, he was the only reason I had left to live. Because love and all these positive feelings is something that's specifically said across the whole book that Ruin cannot even conceive of. He has no concept of it. Seems completely flabbergasted by it. He understands that people feel pain when people they love die, and he even says a little bit earlier that it's, he tries to gloat about it, basically. It's really interesting to me that not only does he completely lose based on that and his lack of being able to understand it, but that Vin is well aware of it as she does that too. So I really liked the way she worded that in her last moments, even though it was very sad.
I could see this scene being so her being so tears in her eyes saying that, but being so glad that now she has what it would take to win, and that it was a masterful stroke to have set it up this way.
I also like that it's asinine, the idea that you would let everyone you care about die for nothing, that you wouldn't just go all in and do whatever it takes.
And that's a scene, another one where I could see it when they do a movie. Like, end of the movie, end of the trilogy, she just thinks of everyone that was lost. Kelsier, and then the movie does a shot of Kelsier.
Oh, God.
Hey, I'm a sucker for those sort of things. Whenever that sort
of stuff yeah.
It's all about how it's directed. You can make it work, or it can be awful.
But I think it'd be great where, these characters that we don't see anymore, or ones that you don't really think much of anymore, like Yaden from the first book, and
I'm surprised Yaden got referenced in there. Oh yes, Yaden.
He was in the meeting,
Yeah,
he's back there.
He's the one that hired Kelsier. It was his whole plan.
Yeah.
He was probably the first tool of this being started.
Did Yaden have metal in him? Do we have evidence of that?
No.
But he's just
speaking
a
of
dumbass.
metal, speaking of being used as a tool and stuff, going back to that short story that we read, the 11th Metal, even in that hints about stuff, because you had a scene where Kelsier and you had his master and stuff. And there's a scene where his master's like talking to himself. It's like, no, he's a good one. No, I'm not going to do that. So, just showing that his master was either crazy or spiked because Ruin was talking to him. And Ruin had him get led to that area. That way Kelsier could find the note talking about the 11th medal in order to start Kelsier thinking about being able to take down the Lord Ruler.
Interesting.
So even in that short story that was created for a role-playing game, even that had tie-ins and hints of Ruin and foreshadowing. All right, let's go to my quote. So mine's just going to be this. It's kind of an epigraph. This was before the epilogue, but it was just like on the opposite page from it. Vin was special. Preservation chose her from a very young age, as I have mentioned. I believe that he was grooming her to take his power, yet the mind of Preservation was quite weak at that point, reduced only to the fragment that we knew as the Mist Spirit. What made him choose this child? Was it because she was Mistborn? Was it because she had snapped so early in life, coming to her powers as she suffered the pains of the unusually difficult labor her mother went through to bear her? Finn was unusually talented and strong with allomancy, even from the beginning. I believe that she must have drawn some of the mist into her as she was still a child, in those brief times when she wasn't wearing the earring. Preservation had mostly gotten her to stop wearing it by the time Kelsier recruited her, though she put it back in for a moment before joining the crew. Then she left it there at Kelsier's suggestion. No one else could draw upon the mists. I have determined this. Why were they open to Vin and not others? I suspect that she couldn't have taken them all in until after she touched the power at the Well of Ascension. It was always meant, I believe, to be something of an attuning force. Something that, once touched, would adjust a person's body to be able to accept the mists. Yet she did make use of a small crumb of Preservation's power when she defeated the Lord Ruler, more than a year before she began hearing of the power return to the Well. There is much more to this mystery. Perhaps I will tease it out eventually, as my mind grows more and more accustomed to its expanded nature. Perhaps I will determine why I was able to take the power myself. For now, I wish to make a simple acknowledgement of the woman who held the power right before me. Of all of us who touched it, I feel she was the most worthy. I just like it was just a final little thing of talking about Vin. We've been with her through 3 books, and just talking about how she is, some more explanation at the end, just saying that she was the most worthy to have the power.
It is a little nice, like, obituary thing for Vin, who is our main character, you know. She came a long way from trusting nobody in the world to, like, giving up everything to save it.
So now I will just go over some comments that we had. So these comments will be from that Hero of Ages, chapters 59 through 65, which was the episode where we had the Cosmere reads on. First one was from Adel8. A kaiju conjure twerk off, and then a laughing emoji.
Yes. Was disappointed that didn't happen.
Alright, and then we'll go with the comment from Reader Warrior for that one. I really hope one day all the podcasters I've met and associated with can get together at a con. It's great to see 2 of my favorite Cosmere podcasts under one roof, screen, episode.
Yeah, that would be fun. I don't know where everyone's from, but that would be a fun thing. If there was ever a convention for, like, a book, maybe a book signing or something we can go to.
Or the Brandon Sanderson themed convention that happens every November, December.
I don't know. I'm new to this.
Yeah, there is one, but I wouldn't want you 2 to go there yet, because I don't want you just to get spoilers from walking around and seeing somebody cosplaying as a different person.
Go to the Cosmere world, and we'll get all these spoilers.
Yeah, you'll go there, it's like, wait, what are you cosplaying as? Oh, I'm Zombie Finn from a future book.
You know, when I don't know what a cosplay is, I never go, what are you?
I'm Marsh as an Inquisitor.
Oh, I'm on the first
I just started the book. I just met Marsh. You mean Kelsier's brother?
Yeah, that'd be a bad one, but eventually maybe we could try to go to the con, but right now I want to get... There are certain parts of Cosmere that I would want to get to first. Is nobody going to defend Elend as best boy?
Is this Reader Warrior again?
Yep.
Yeah. You are the defender.
So the spike on his forehead theory is dead. Thank goodness.
Oh, for the ATM bead.
Yep.
Yeah. I like that idea. Like a tiny little
I don't remember whose that was, but it seems like that would be a bit obvious to even have be a mystery if that was, because it would just
sometimes.
be like, yeah, I mean, when like we first showed up, sure, but when he keeps showing up and they keep saying it, I'm like, after a while you'd be like, okay, and then he's like, and it turned out he had a spike there, would not be a good, like, you'd be like, why didn't you just tell me that from the start? Why are we being all coy about it here?
Yeah.
And the other thing I always thought is, like, if it's a bead just on his forehead, when he would move his head, the bead would move too. It wouldn't just be a...
Oh, it was dangling. Okay.
Oh, I thought it was like, in my mind, it would be pushed in all the way. Like,
yeah. I
like
thought
it
it was
wouldn't
like
be on a chain or loose. It would be super tight.
I think it did say that it was on a chain, though. Like it was like a little crown.
Did it? I don't remember.
I thought it was one of those little dots on the forehead, like a decoration.
Like an Indian thing or something, whatever those are.
Yeah. I don't know what they're called, but yes.
Well, which if someone who died has powers from beyond the grave, or believing that someone, who's basically God for 1,000 years, pretended to be dead when a little girl randomly showed up. We're just biased because we had Vin's viewpoint of the spear going through the Lord Ruler's chest.
I missed that whole, like...
That's what Yeoman thinks, that the Lord Ruler's only pretending to be dead, That was his belief at the time.
Yeah.
I can see that logic, but as he keeps trying to rationalize, there's no obvious reason to do that, except vaguely to test faith, which is always the weakest rationalization for something.
And then he is told by an Inquisitor that the Lord Ruler's dead.
Mm-hmm.
Technically, the Sanderlanche doesn't start until Chapter 70, if you follow the 100-page rule. Better question is, would Ruin and Reen have different actors? That one, you'll have to wait for our casting.
Casting, yeah.
I'm using whatever my Reen was, I'm using it again. I always like to do that better.
I don't think you cast Reen because he didn't ever show up.
Oh, yeah, because he's in this book, yeah. Damn, I got to cast a Reen then.
Oh, he would have a voiceover the entire time, though, because he's always talking to them. So you could cast... He would have to be in there.
Yeah, that'd be the cool way to do it.
Mm-hmm. Like, that's definitely Anthony Hopkins' voice.
Anthony Hopkins is playing Reen? Don't you think there's a bit of an age difference there?
I just thought of the first person who had a very distinct voice.
That just reminds me of my idea.
He's got a great voice.
My idea that I've always wanted to do is like just make a movie of like a high school like drama or comedy movie, that sort of stuff, but have all the actors just be clearly too old to play high schoolers. Have the high schoolers played by like, Alec Baldwin or Sean Penn or just stuff like that. Just these actors in their 40s or 50s or maybe even older, just all playing high school kids.
If they're casted to be the perfect character, whatever that is, just like their age, that might be very interesting. Alec Baldwin he'd be a jock.
Yeah.
I don't know. The teachers might just be normal adults because I don't want them to play it up like too comedic, and have kids as the teachers. I just think it'd be just play it completely straight.
And they should just redo like Breakfast Club, but cast all the best actors in Hollywood right now, despite their age, to play these roles.
No, just redo Breakfast Club with the same actors. Just do a remake with them still playing the roles.
I lost it. Sheta, what did you just say before that?
Cast the best person to play these characters.
No, before that. You said something that I needed to call out. Yeah, what was it? Oh, you said Alec Baldwin would play a jock. Have you seen what Alec Baldwin looks like nowadays? He's in terrible shape. Like, no.
No, I'm still imagining him in 30 Rock. That's fine.
He wasn't that great in shape in 30 Rock, and he's only gotten older and fatter since then.
Almost, that's what happens.
Yeah.
His spirit is always going to be Jack
Yeah,
to me.
you say that's what happens. It doesn't happen to Brad Pitt. That's all I can say.
Well, he's a clone, so.
Might be.
The reveal of the Conjure's origins is one of my favorite reveals because, of course, Rashik wouldn't have given his friends the allomantic beads. That would have made them fullborns, the very thing the Lord Ruler was most scared of. And of course, it means that Sazed could find his people's religions, and hopefully the one that speaks most to him.
Yeah, that's a nice moment.
Being subtle doesn't mean you can't be overt. It's manipulating the outcomes. Case in point, Ruin using Vin and Elend to find the caches.
This is for...
I don't know. I think you can be manipulative while you're overt. I don't know about subtle and overt. Subtle is so delicate or precise as to be difficult to analyze or describe. That's the definition I have. However, it could be delicately complex and understated, which could fall into that.
Yeah.
And making use of clever and indirect methods. Sure.
Thank you, Webster.
I don't know who gave me that definition. I just looked it up on the search engine.
And clearly, I was talking about the 80s sitcom Webster.
Oh,
I was not.
What are we talking about?
That's Different Strokes.
Oh, did I do that?
I got to it first.
That's Family Matters.
Well, then I don't know what the hell Webster is. What's his catchphrase?
Do you know how long it's been since I've seen an episode of Webster? I don't remember. I don't even know if he had a catchphrase. I have not seen an episode of Webster in probably like 30 years.
Wow.
Storms. I love the way Marsh arrives too, all epic and stuff. We spent all this time with Ruin, but grow complacent because all he can do is speak to Vin. But now, with Marsh, Ruin has weapons here that can be used at his whim. Technically, the Lord Ruler doesn't have a drop of noble blood in him.
Do they ever?
This is proof that Elend is a good man. The best man.
Alright, we get it. You're not going to catch me saying anything bad about Elend after this episode.
If Elend was so great, he could have stopped the koloss and not died.
Oh god, no. He achieved his goal. He died doing the only thing he wanted to do. What more can anyone be expected of in life?
I'm just saying, Raoden would have found a way.
Raoden would have been Elend in the second book, and I don't think he would have changed to third book Elend. That's what I think.
That is pretty apt, I think, for him. He's really optimistic without a plan, so...
I think he would have been a little more competent at it, but I don't think that what needed to happen would have happened perfectly.
Also, if Raoden had his Elantris powers, the koloss probably would not have stood a chance.
Oh, from the end? I don't know. There were tens of thousands of koloss. I forgot to say earlier, my favorite part is when they're like, yep, they'd killed thousands of koloss. I'm like, Jesus.
Oh, you're downplaying it. There were hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
They had to eat a whole pool of ATM, so, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that would be pretty awesome to play in a video game, though, where you're just like...
I think it would get monotonous after a while. I can't play that much Dynasty Warriors just because of that kind of thing.
That's what I was just thinking. That's what it feels like. Come on, I'll kill all of you at once. Like,
I don't know. I have played I played Pirate Warriors for hours on end.
Well, there's a reason that I haven't played as much of that. Can't play as much of that kind of game.
I quite enjoy those. I could play those for hours.
Yeah.
But I also think that Pirate Warriors works because I like the One Piece characters and the different movesets.
It's different than the normal.
I can play as Dead or Alive and Soul Calibur characters in that one you played the hell of, Warriors Orochi, and I still haven't played it.
I know there is one game that I can think of. I will not say the name of the game, but the very end of the game is you play as a person just doing like a final stand against people that just keep coming and coming, and you pretty much you play until you die. You can't win.
I hate those.
I get really stubborn in those. There's a part in Mass Effect in the middle, you don't die, but you get captured no matter what.
Yeah.
And I always, even though I know that's how it's going to be, every time I replay, I very stubbornly get through all the waves until you just can't go anymore.
Mm-hmm. I'm not gonna give up. It's not in my character.
Yeah, exactly.
This game, like, people, if they play it, they might know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know which one.
Through, but it's great. It's emotional too. It's like makes you want to cry, but it's a great ending to the game. All right, let's go back to these. Sheta just thinks Kelsier is piggybacking on Spook's shoulders, whispering in his ear 24/7 from the afterlife. Or when Vin is in extreme mode of self-preservation, it could be Clubs, his uncle, who died a lot more recent than Kelsier too.
Nah, Clubs doesn't have the magic power, right, Shita? That's needed to come back from the dead and speak with people.
Yeah.
We still don't know who the voice was, right?
He didn't look... We do know it's... Huh? You talking to Spook?
Yeah. That's I need you to deliver a message.
Oh, at the end, that's true.
Or whatever it was. It didn't say that, but it was something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, we can guess, but...
They didn't outright say. But yeah, it has to be Kelsier, because Spook looks up to him in a way he would not look up to his uncle. You know, Kelsier's like your cool older friend who you want to impress and stuff.
All right, and then let's just go to the other from last week's episode. Do I want to do this one or this one's pretty long? I'll save this one for our wrap-up episode. We'll go over this comment. So we will go over that comment next time. Yeah, but for next week, everyone, we're not reading any new chapters because next week will be our wrap-up episode where we'll be discussing our thoughts on the Hero of Ages, discussing our thoughts on the Mistborn trilogy overall. We'll do our fan casting, and then we'll look forward to the future and preview the next book that we're reading, Warbreaker.
I like that title. It's badass.
Yeah. Sounds like a Vikings weapon name.
Yeah, but Warbreaker, they're going to break through the war. They're going to just break it.
This hammer
Imagine
will
it's a
break
badass
war.
pacifist weapon. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, we will go to that next week. All right, and so for now, let's do our plugs. So if you two go right ahead, do the usual thing.
Justin, you have to do mine.
What?
Yep.
I've done that before.
Oh, then do it again.
No. I can't handle that much. All right, I will. If you want some of the most kick-ass cosplay, you can go to at Mermaid Machete on Instagram. If you want some of the most detailed delineations, you can go on to at Shetalo. Right? Is that correct, or did I mix them up? Go to one, you'll find the other, and you can get both of those things, and they'll alliterate, and it'll be great. If you want some scrappier art, you can go to at ProfanityBeaver. And on Instagram, DeviantArt, and X. I don't know how I forgot one fucking letter. And and then just pretend I said something else so exciting that you need to go check it out right fucking now.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
That was great.
All right. For Cosmic Chronicle stuff, you can follow us on Key, a most ancient letter, formerly known as Twitter, Cosmicron, COSMERECHRON. Or if you prefer to use Blue Sky, you can follow us on there, Cosmic Chronicles. If you want to send us an email, cosmicchronicles@gmail.com. And you can also, if you want to give us a rating, give us a review on different places, go right ahead. That probably helps us out. That's it for this week. Be sure to come back, listen to us again. And until then, everyone, go out there, eat some delicious, delicious White Castle if you have them nearby. If you don't, contact White Castle, open up your own franchise there.
Oh, yeah. We definitely need more White Castles in the world. So.
And please, for the love of God, stop sending us White Castle burgers. They're moldy by the time they get to us.
Yep, so goodbye, everybody.
Yes, and if you're only listening for this book... Oh, wait, no, I'll say that next week. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.